I think there's a huge benefit in being an outsider because you don't conform to the conventions.
Media, anything, idea, everything just seemed the right idea because everyone else was obsessed with TV.
Challenging the status quo, the way of doing things.
Isn't that the fun, where you actually really get to play in culture in whatever way or shape or form that is? It gives you so much fire.
What's that?
We are an award-winning show.
When you know the boss has got your back, you can be fearless.
Welcome back to the second part of Iris 25 festive mini-series. And have I already told you that we are an award-winning show? Please feel free to feast your eyes on our rose gold / bronze. And thank you very much for voting for us. In this episode, we're going to talk about creativity and particularly culture and the interplay between ideas and culture and how that's important for brands today. So joining me, I just want to start with Shaun and Grant. So would you just like to say a few words about yourselves? Who are you? And what was your Iris journey?
So I am Shaun McIlrath. I was the global CCO of Iris from 2008 to last year. But I'm now on a farm in Suffolk plotting the overthrow of the advertising industry.
And I'm Grant Hunter, and I suppose I've worn quite a few creative hats. Creative director in London, then APAC, then Europe, and then globally. And now I'm on my own little adventure with Cosmic Microwave. A bit like Shaun, I've also got a pond, pulling out bull reeds, but also looking at the green economy, sports and entertainment.
Fantastic. And Menno?
Menno, the incoming new global CCO, joined 2.5 months ago.
I'm Katy. I'm the new ECD at Iris. I've been there for 3 months, so a week longer than Menno.
We're going to be talking about creativity and culture and also about creativity and technology and the sort of how our industry is shifting. And it seems to be shifting quite quickly. If I could just start with Shaun and Grant and just thinking way back to the start of your Iris journeys. And I'd just love to know a little bit more about what you were thinking about creativity at the time and what was important about the sort of work that we were doing back then.
When I joined Iris, the internet was just becoming like a proper marketing tool.
Never take off.
And it was brilliant. It was a bit like a wild frontier. Anything went, and we were presenting like mad shit to clients. Do you remember? So anything from sort of, well, let's just do this in a spaceship to it was an open playing field again. So it felt properly creative. It felt like the old restrictions had died a little bit. The old barriers were broken down. The sort of the 4 or 5 big agencies that had kind of had a monopoly on creativity that was being eroded, and it felt like a wild frontier again.
And what about your experience, Grant? I think somewhere we do have your original neon sign, media, anything, idea, everything. And I think you hatched that phrase as a sort of, as a very young a creative director. And I think we sort of latched on to it and latched onto each other around the sentiment of anything is possible and also the sort of ability to think expansively across all forms of media and discipline. So what was your sort of feelings during this sort of part of the Iris journey?
I think that's the exciting part of it. Actually, the phrase, Simon and I, we were a creative team and we actually had it in our book, and where we were talking about how do we position Iris, media, anything, idea, everything just seemed the right idea because everyone else was obsessed with TV and ATL first. So I think our best ideas back then and still now were inherently PR-able ideas, things which would travel across culture. Whether that's getting JK in a plane at 35,000 feet and breaking 6 Guinness World Records. Yeah. It was designed to travel, and getting on MTV, people talking about it. And I think that for us was, and it's still part of the DNA, I think, of Iris. How do you get an idea to travel so people really lean into it? Ideas which feel like they're part of culture. They're not normal shaped, So whenever we popped up, we were always trying to do stuff which was surprising to people.
Yeah, it'd be good to understand that a bit more. So how deliberate was it? because it's like I look back now and I look at Iris on Show and I look through some of the annuals that we did where all the work is captured from all over the network, and I look back and I think that's amazing. How did we come up with that? And it was and how did a client buy it, and what even is it? But I'd just love to know what was going on and how overt was it? What were we doing that was making all that happen consistently?
I think part of it is we weren't belonging. Our land's very cliquey, and we didn't belong. We were sort of outsiders, and I think there's a huge benefit in being an outsider because you don't conform to the conventions. You don't want to be. You get to a point where you go, if I can't join them, beat them, kind of thing, and so we weren't hidebound by who's going to have the best 30 or 60 second ad this year. And we didn't have the budgets either. So you're sort of forced to be more creative in terms of the way you approach a brief.
One of the amazing things that you did a few years ago was Wenlock and Mandeville. And again, it was sort of one of these things that, just happened. And again, no idea how we managed to do it. But you did. And I know that, not a great commercial success. I think we earned the princely sum of £10,000. But what an amazing impact they had, and they were so successful, during the Olympic Games. But what was that like? What were you feeling as we were sort of doing that?
I think building on what Shaun was talking about, I think it was that underdog spirit and sort of just giving it a go. So it's kind of fearless because we'd done stuff like Music Monsters, So that's Sony Ericsson, I think that was the start. Tori Stewart and the Sony Ericsson team had created these little Music Monster characters to show different genres of music. And then we've done some work with the Department of Health around sexual health with the two Eskimos. So we had a few character things, and I think any agency, needs a good character or two in their back catalogue. So that became the backdrop to us submitting the response. And then before you know it, you're in on the long list. And I think it was 1,000 kind of companies got involved with it. And then they shortlisted down to 20. And it just kept rolling, And when we were down to the last 5, we're up against people like Aardman, Warner Brothers, James Jarvis, the kind of illustrator. And I think ultimately we looked at it and went, let's not do what everyone else has done. If you look at every mascot in history up until that point, it was always an animal related to that particular country. Canada was a beaver, America was an eagle. So rightly, it should have been a pigeon or a bulldog. But we want to celebrate the multicultural aspect of London. So that's where Mandeville and Wenlock came from. They were originally called Milo, My London. And the idea was you could customise them in your own image to celebrate the melting point of London.
Well, I think that's really important because a lot of what we've talked about over the years is about participation. They were everyone's mascot, and it was up to you what you did with them, and you could customise and play with them. Put them into stories, and I think that was the sort of the essence of them that made them so attractive and ultimately successful. Where you compare them to a lot of the ones that you say they are fixed points, aren't they? They're typical. It doesn't provoke any imagination.
Yeah, and I think it was a moment in time as well, that they were 2012 the first digital Olympics, really. It's really where social media was taking off, and you look at what was going on within gaming, within PlayStation, where people were customising their avatars. I think they were the second most successful piece of merchandise at the Olympic Games that year.
I think the other thing that was interesting, again, it's because of the sort of range of skills and our, lack of conventional wisdom or established wisdom, if you like. If you were to go to one of the sort of actual character companies, they will just do the characters. Whereas we'd actually done our homework we'd actually gone and spoken to all of the merchandise companies, all the toy manufacturers, and we really understood what it would take to make these a commercial success for them. And we brought that into the whole debate and the whole design process. And again, I think that's because we were able to sort of think more laterally, as much more of a sort of marketing company.
Yeah. And also not to be afraid of backlash. The mascots were designed for kids, ultimately to get kids involved in sport. But we still had the older establishment kind of laying in, going, what are those alien things? Of course, the kids loved it even more.
Yeah. I just want to move forward into sort of present times. You've been here a while now, Katy. How are you feeling about being here?
Good. It's still really exciting. It seems to be I get a new challenge every week, which is exciting and interesting stuff that I've got to work with. Obviously having Menno and Zoe around as well, and them being new, it means that we've all got this same energy to drive things forward.
Thinking about your sort of journey through the industry, were you aware of Iris before?
Yeah, so I think I've probably been in advertising for like 20 years, just less than. And I think when I started, I remember hearing about Iris all the time. They'd keep popping up, and it would always be quite interesting, exciting things, probably that you guys were doing, that were little high points, little peaks of like, oh, what Iris doing now? And they always seemed to be doing, like you say, different things within the industry that other people weren't doing. But I think because you were like sort of outside of the industry, you're saying you felt like the outsider, it was often you didn't really feel like you knew what was going on. I didn't know loads of people that worked there. I didn't get to chat to people about it. So it was every now and then there was just this interesting, surprising, exciting, stunty PR things coming my way, which I just found really interesting. So when the opportunity came up, it was like, I've always kind of wanted to get a bit inside there and see what's going on.
It's quite hard for me to look at it because I'm just institutionalised. And and one of the things I've started to sort of appreciate is older Irish folks do have a sort of sense of underdog spirit. Mm-hmm. And what's good about that is willingness to take risks. Mm-hmm. Not so bothered about what other people might think or what might happen.
Yeah.
What's bad about that, though, is it's not always very clear what we do. Sometimes it doesn't always get the credit it deserves. Mm-hmm. There's quite often a thing where we're a sort of experimental underbelly, although we may well be interesting. We don't always get the credit, that we deserve. So I think there's a sort of interesting thing there, and I've noticed with the new senior folks that are now leading the company, you're bringing higher expectations. Mm-hmm. And that's exciting, and I think the company needs that, quite frankly, higher levels of an instant hit of high ambition and high standards. And I think there's a real moment in time now, I think, within Iris.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, like the underdog thing, I think it has been a thing, but I think I now prefer to think of it as like a challenger, like Iris the challenger, challenging the status quo, the way of doing things in the industry and to our clients. Because the underdog, I don't know, somehow feels a little bit like negative in a way, whereas challenger feels quite exciting. So I
think that's a really good point. And I think the industry is so homogenous and so that actually anything that challenges the existing ways of doing it is a good thing.
So Menno, it's great to have you in town. Dutch.
Yes.
Spent most of your career in the US.
Yes.
It'd be good just to get, a bit of a perspective from, what's going on in globally and also particularly in the US, and, what's different or exciting about that.
Oh, first of all, I very much kind of like connect to that spirit. I spent most of my time in the Netherlands in Rotterdam, and the advertising scene is in Amsterdam. So I always struggled to like even connect, or I remember like when there were like boards or like trips to things and all that stuff, it was always like, oh, you're from Rotterdam. Don't bother about him. But it gives you so much fire, right? And you go like, okay, I will show you. And that kind of spirit I just so truly love. But from the US perspective, more than it's funny. It's the willingness to experiment, the willingness to play around, the willingness to be wrong, theoretically are all American cultural aspects, right? Innovation, yes. Historically, more so in the US than in Europe. But in agencies, it's still very traditional. And it's still very, you'd be shocked how many 60 seconds, kind of like bro script, comedy, open on an office are still floating around every day. And it just, I find that incredibly boring. If that's, 5% of my job, I'm good with that. That's fun, that's great. I love comedy TV, but my job is bigger than that because I like to see creativity in the widest of spectrum. And again, if that is a mascot, how amazing is that? You should have negotiated royalty. That's a side thing. I put that on you. But isn't that the fun, where you actually really get to play in culture in whatever way or shape or form that is? And I find that more exciting than still to this day following the traditional, mass insight. Therefore, my script opens a certain way. Therefore, the payoff is a certain way. And I think, honestly, consumers or the audience has moved on from that because they're aware, because they've seen these tricks their entire life. And it doesn't excite, it doesn't surprise, it doesn't do anything for an actual audience perspective. Yeah. It's good when it's done really well, of course, right? Because when an amazing London shop does an incredible film and it's incredibly artful and it's incredibly beautiful and big and beautiful, it's amazing. But it can't be everything that we do, because we have to apply our creative thinking and out-of-the-box thinking and outsider challenger type thinking to help clients and businesses move forward where they are stuck because they are not as random, unexpected, and creative as they are. That is the value we offer. So the moment we start to erode that and become routine-based, it actually becomes a problem for the clients and us.
Yeah, I mean, this is all really interesting, isn't it? And also really important given where we're currently at, because we're sort of in a sort of industry now that is kind of talking itself into a sort of dark place. Very anxious. It's sort of lost its sort of spirit and its identity. And also increasingly, you find clients are more able to do some of this for themselves, and the gap between what clients are doing and what agencies are doing is actually getting smaller and smaller. And then you add in offshoring, more procurement, more AI and technology and all this sort of cocktail. And it's sort of taken away the sort of heart and the soul of what attracts us to this industry and what makes the industry work. So it'd just be good to sort of get your perspectives really on, what you think then the role is of what we're doing, and how do we, stay relevant and be competitive in that sort of interesting sort of contextual shift.
Right. I think it's personally, honestly, when there's kind of after the entire AI wave and after everything, you can have everything en masse on demand. What's left? Personality, character, humanity, experience, your life. It's just all the things. For me, having spent a number of years in the US as a European, coming back to Europe now to be based here, that is, it's not unique, but it's unique in my experience and my upbringing and my heritage and all the cultural things that I've seen along the way. It just, that becomes the last remaining thing. And then the willingness to follow your gut, like it was discussed before. It's just because AI will never necessarily have gut, and the gut that we have that maybe others do not have is bridging that from a commercial aspect to a consumer culture. Instinctively, if something's going to hit or not. You guys instinctively knew that the mascot was going to hit. That's why you propose it, that's why you present it, and you sell it with confidence. But that is an uniquely human aspect, I would say, and I don't think that goes away.
Yeah. What do you think, Katy? Given AI, and obviously within our business we're experimenting with it all of and using it as a tool. But is it friend or foe, ally?
There's been so many revolutions in human lifespan. There's an industrial revolution. There was TV came. Everyone was like, will it kill cinemas? No, it won't kill cinemas. People still love to go because they love that experience. Like Menno's saying, it's something that you can't get that feeling when you're at home. And I think AI is the same. It's there's tools that are really, really useful that allow us to do our job better. And that's AI. AI is helping us be more than we were before. And it frees up time to do tasks that are more important and more valuable, and more important for us to spend time doing creatively.
Yeah, there's sort of widgets that make meeting notes. So you don't have to make any meeting notes anymore.
Yeah.
Have you ever read any of them? They are shit. You sort of read it back and you think, oh, was I in that meeting? And it sort of has a way of just capturing nonsensical things that make are not significant at all. And as a result, you can't spend the time reading it. It's just useless. It just doesn't work at all in my experience.
I guess it's like guiding, isn't it? You have to have an expert there to guide what exists at the moment. I mean, obviously it's AI is ever evolving. All the different uses of it are getting better. And, we've only really been using it for maybe a couple of years en masse, and all that information that's going into it is just making it better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I find it really useful for many things that save me time.
It's dead interesting, isn't it? 'Cause I have a sense that there is going to be more focus on originality and higher added value, like almost like fewer but much bigger ideas, much more higher quality ideas, and that are conditioned, if you like, to skip into culture, be culture. I think that is really what we're working towards, and it's this sort of less sort of analog ideas that just work in a particular channel or particular medium. Well, of course, there'll be some of that around, but that's getting more commoditized.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it's the thing as well that happens when something grows very quickly and becomes very mass. People reject it for certain things. So I imagine there'll be a lot of very well crafted, handcrafted, very humanized marketing that exists, because people will want to move slightly away from everything feeling AI. I mean, the Coke ad, I think people found quite unnerving because it was all created in AI.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's like when you have, at the moment there are limits to AI of how it can create people and what they look like, and so that it has to be guided. And I'm sure the Coca-Cola ad was guided. I think there were quite a few companies that helped put it together, but I think people found it a bit unnerving because it had people's faces smiling, and
it was interesting seeing that from outside the industry, because the industry reaction to it was, it's terrible shit. AI is not a threat. Externally, everybody's going, it's a Coke ad. And I think that's the thing with AI, isn't it? It will instantly remove a layer of shit, which the industry produced. The industry has produced a lot of shit that AI can lift. So back to your point, it'll put a premium on real originality. But I don't know that I think there's something bigger and more tectonic happening. It's just another thing that's going to erode the commercial basis of the business. And you've got, I think we've got like our Blockbuster moment going on, which is Blockbuster thought they were in the business of selling videotapes, and Netflix knew they were in the business of home entertainment. Adland thinks it's in the business of making ads and films, when actually the generic is we are the creative intermediary between brands and consumers. That's our playground. We need to get back to that, and that's a much broader, more muscular form of creativity. It's a really liberating form of creativity, and if we can get our heads around that and embrace it, the future for the business is good. If we can't, it's a law of diminishing return. Will be a cottage industry crafting little films that AI can't quite make.
I'd like to see things become more considered. So we start to think about how little we need rather than how much. Look at Black Friday. I can't believe how much shit was just like churned out and hitting my inbox.
Yeah, fantastic.
I don't know if you've seen Buy Now on Netflix. I mean, that is the broader mainstream having their eyes open to consumption.
Well, I'll tell you what, Black Friday, it's like, it's not even on Friday. It's like it's like a whole season.
It's like a month. It's going to be a year.
Is it over yet? Is it like? Is it expand beyond Christmas? It's like, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's it's also captured culture as well. It's on TV, and people talking about Black Friday deals, and you're right. I mean, it just to sort of promote excess consumerism.
And I think for us creatively, actually, considering, back to Katy's point, it's like if you look at vinyl and its resurgence, people are rediscovering after it's gone through the hype cycle of tech. It's actually just appreciation for real craft.
It's good that you guys, like, you both Irish legends, and really shaped what the company is and how successful it has been over the years. How are you feeling now? So you both had a bit of time out, a bit of rehab, Yeah, I've actually seen you smiling, What's going on?
It's
how are you feeling?
You go. Your most recent died.
It's like anything, isn't it? A lot of love for Iris and the journey. it's kind of nice to come out and see it from outside, and it's going to go on to another chapter. That's what has always been great about the place. That's why I stayed so long. Every 6 months it was something different, and it will continue to evolve. But the thing for me is having some headspace. It's nice after 20 years just to kind of get a bit of a moment to go, okay, what do I want to do for the next 10 years? So I've set myself a target of 50 creative projects by the time I'm 60. Yeah. So that's one part, and that's just to make sure I've got enough time to be creative for myself rather than in service of a brand.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a brilliant and very clear agenda, isn't it? So it makes
how far into the 50 are you?
First two I started.
First two. Okay, that's good. Are you on track? Does that track?
Yeah, I'll keep you up to date. I was talking to Katy about it earlier. Maybe as I get towards the end, it will just be, let's do a watercolour.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Just squeeze a couple in.
Yeah, exactly.
So Menno, it'd be good just to sort of just get a sense from you around, obviously very new still, how you're feeling about being at Iris and what you think, the next couple of years are going to look like for you.
Well, first of all, I'm currently in the phase where I'm uncovering stories and great ones. We have to catch up more, I guess. But it's honestly the spirit of the place. You can sense it, you can feel it, right? And, we're a bit more in a corporate office currently rather than, I guess, previous chapters have been. But you still feel the spirit and the vibe and the stories and the legends and all the amazing things that kind of like happened. And I just that is my hope for what comes next, to retain that spirit, to keep saying, okay, there is another way, to keep saying, let's try, to keep saying, why not, right? So it's just a little bit more of an open mindset and an open spectrum of what's possible. And then again, always just a mindful eye of what's happening in the industry and what other agencies are doing, but trying to make our own little sphere within that. So currently I'm trying to articulate, the best I can, and that's the discussion that happens, but it needs to be informed by what Iris was, but it was great because honestly, you guys built an amazing global company, and it's because of something, and it's because of the spirit, and it's because of trying and experimenting and doing, and a why not spirit. So trying to shape what that is in the now, of course, then with the context of the industry and culture and all that stuff. But that has to remain because it's great. It makes us unique. It's just, it's our positioning. It's who we are. And the last thing that we should do is try and change that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I've sort of relearned the importance of that spirit, that personality around trying things, risk, being open to risk and just give things a go. And if things don't work out, don't worry. I think that's just a fundamental part of the entire 25-year journey, and also this sort of sense of who says you can't, and break rules. Don't be so worried about what the rest of the world or the rest of the industry thinks about it. Just do it. Just give it a go.
No, actually, I'm kind of enjoying this podcast because you don't really speak a lot outside of. You speak a lot. You talk to everybody, but when you answer with things, you answer very brief and short. Your answer is, go do it. Right. And that's great. And that's actually that's the spirit that you want and you need. And you're just you just want clarity and the confidence and the belief to go forward and do something if somebody else believes, right? It's isn't that the most amazing thing? If somebody in the department says, I want to do this, and I might not personally understand it, or if I say something to you, you might not personally understand it, but there's a willingness to say, go play, go try, go do. Yeah. And you are so brief and short with those things, but I think in those cases, actually, that's part of the spirit. That is what's needed. Because, right?
Yeah, I think, that's something that you should take credit for, because when the boss has got your back, you can be fearless. You can't fight two battles on two fronts. So a lot of the creative culture came from actually you going, fuck it, why not?
Why not?
Go for it.
Do it.
The answer is always yes. It's just about, do we tell someone? Are we better off telling someone, or are we better off not?
There was a thing that when the leadership team in London were talking about this, ask for forgiveness, not for permission, which sort of seemed like a real Iris sense of being.
So I'm just going to wrap up really, and thank you all for joining me. It's been brilliant to get you all together, and I appreciate that you guys don't know each other at all and have never met one another, or you two will have done. And you met her.
Not our individual links.
But thank you once again for tuning in to this edition of Iris, 25 years old, festive special Entrepreneurs in the Wild. Did I say award-winning podcast? Feel free to download this from wherever you get your podcasts.